Well, welcome in to another edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about some historic moments in Rick and Bubba history. 28 years we've been doing this now, and we had a scheduled guest today that it didn't work out. But, you know, we look at that, Bubba, as an opportunity.
Well, it is, Rick.
It's an opportunity.
We always love an opportunity to talk because, gosh knows, 4 hours a day is not enough.
It's not enough. That's why we have an individual podcast, because some of you are screaming, that's just not enough time for me.
Well, in all fairness,
Yep.
we've been on there a long time,
Yep.
and a lot of people come and go.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know a lot about the early days when the show started in Gadsden, Alabama.
They don't.
And some of the events that we had in the early days.
Yeah, so we're going to do some Rick and Bubba history, and then we were always intending to do this as part of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, because it's impossible, you know, on the show to constantly do flashbacks in the middle of the things that are going on. So today it's going to be Rick and Bubba University flashbacks, and now remember, Bubba and I sit here at 58 and almost 58, so.
Do we have to give that number, Rick?
Well, I'm just saying our grasp of this is going to be as best as we can do.
So I think you're saying we need to tell this story before we forget it.
That is correct. And then we'll always have it, so when we forget it, we'll go back and watch the podcast or listen to it. So we are glad you're here, and we're going to have fun with this. And if you are a Rick and Bubba fan, this is going to be a lot of great memories. But like Bubba said, if you're relatively new, you may not even know about this. We're going to hit two of them for sure. If time allows, we'll hit three, but two for sure. And this goes back. So remember, the show started 1994.
Full time. We were doing a little part time before that.
Yeah. So remember, Bubba and I did part time for a year and a half, maybe a little bit of
at least a year.
We did all of '93 part time. I remember that, and that's when I had arrived at the new station. So yeah, you're right. So it would have to be, because my transition to where you were as engineer was from 92 to 93,
yes,
because of the national championship in 92. Yes. So that's a marker for us,
yes,
that can't be denied.
Which is probably a pretty good story, too.
That's another one, too. Maybe that's another podcast.
These are Rick and Bubba campfire stories.
They are.
If we just had a fire.
Yeah. So remember this, it starts in a place that is currently still standing, and we are still on there, on an affiliate Z93. But this was when we were on Q104. It was Gadsden, Alabama, and the mayor's name in Gadsden was Steve Means.
Yes, and Q104 was a legendary top 40 station. At one time, it held big-time numbers in Birmingham and in Huntsville because there just wasn't a lot of FM signals out there at the time.
Yeah, I can still remember as a kid, my parents had, you know, that room in the house you're not allowed to go?
Right.
And
only when company comes.
And you don't even know what it's for. Kind of a living room kind of thing.
Yeah, the doors stay shut.
Yeah, and in those days, the stereo systems were huge.
Yeah,
you had big speakers,
tube radios,
and so this was something relatively new. Where the radio was, there was a record player on top of it, and then there was this big amp that where the AM/FM radio was.
Yeah.
Well, the one I had was the latest deal. It had this little spinning knob that had so much precision.
Yeah.
I mean, it
was weighted.
Oh yeah.
But you know what it was doing too? It was just pulling a string with that little.
Is that all that was?
Yeah, it's crazy how they used to do that.
That's the beauty of making your broadcast partner a former engineer. So I didn't know that. Thanks for ruining that magic of a child. But anyway, and so now I know the string would pull it toward the frequency of 103.7. And the station at the time was so powerful, called the Southern Supergiant, that they had a light on the needle, and the light would light up when
stereo hit it.
Yeah, when the stereo hit it. And I thought to myself, this is the coolest thing ever. So for you and I to be now working for that station, to us, was a huge ordeal.
Oh, yeah. We grew up listening to it. We grew up listening. They had a legendary morning show, Rick and Dennis. And
big influence on us.
They did a lot of stunts. They one of their most popular one was broadcasting from a submarine in the Coosa River, which I thought that is just so cool.
They dropped a submarine down into the Coosa River and did their show from there.
Yeah, I mean that's cool stuff.
When you think about the things we've done,
that'll influence you if you're a little kid.
Yeah, so Bubba and I, we were greatly influenced by Rick and Dennis. We're now on the station that they were on. Of course, we were also greatly influenced by Mark and Brian,
yep,
TC and John Ed. These are
just
all
a lot of folks.
And you'll see that we almost took all these shows and did a hodgepodge of some of their stuff. But we love when shows do things that other shows can't do, or they start some kind of movement with the power of radio. And so we were there in Gadsden, but Bubba and I did not live in Gadsden. We were commuting in. So an occupational tax became an issue with the people of Gadsden who worked in Gadsden but didn't live in Gadsden.
Yeah, it was a real sticking point with a lot of the folks there in Gadsden because it basically was a city tax.
Right.
And everybody who worked there paid the tax, but everybody who worked there didn't get to vote for the tax or vote against it because they commuted in like we did. And then there also was a little loophole, Rick, you may have forgot about. Doctors and lawyers didn't have to pay it.
That is correct.
So it was a real sore spot with everybody, and that's one reason it was a point of contention that we always had a lot of fun with.
And remember, we would scream, it was something our founders would scream, this was taxation without representation.
It really was.
And we didn't like it, and we didn't like it at all.
And it was always in the courts. One court would find it unconstitutional, another would say it could, and it was always a hot topic.
So Bubba and I got to rebel rousing on the show, which, as most of you know, that we can do that. And we thought, well, what can we do? And during this time, there was a movement of men that were going to go to Washington called the Million Man March. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And we were familiar with that. We were reporting on that, and so you may know this, you may not. Bubba and I have a bit of a weight issue. I mean, we struggle.
We're a little heavy
with our weight. We've never shied away from it. We've been very open about it, and we thought to ourselves, all these different communities in our country try to make change, but what about the community of heavy people?
Right.
What could we do that would bring attention to the taxation without representation?
Dare I say a topic we could put our weight behind?
That one of our. It's so. First of all, you have to start thinking. Well, if we're going to have this movement, as Bubba said, we've got to say this is something we can put our weight behind. We got to come up with our slogans. If you've been listening to our show, you know governments love slogans.
Yes.
I mean,
we love to do chants.
They love a slogan, and we like to chant. But I want you to know we've been chanting long before now.
Oh yeah.
And so we started kind of talking on the air about what we could do. Now the mayor, who was a fan of the show, started realizing, okay, this is picking up momentum. If you remember, we even dropped a line in about it on one of our parody songs that involved the controversy of the Civil War statue, Emma Sampson.
Wow, that's a whole other story,
that
Rick.
Is.
You're going to chase that
different.
rabbit?
But do you remember we dropped in there that maybe we could raise money for that statue through the occupational tax.
Right.
Do you remember? So,
yes, I do.
So just understand.
It was a great parody song that you penned, and it was one that we all got behind.
We all got behind it, because we can put our weight behind anything.
That's right.
So we started thinking, all right, so the first problem you run into when you're dealing with the heavy community is the word marching. If you start thinking about marching, you're going to get a little bit of a pushback from the heavy community because we don't march.
Well,
because that requires walking, it requires possible heat, blocks and blocks of walking.
Well, the way you get around that is you don't march very far.
No.
And you have positive reinforcement at the end of the march.
Can you believe we actually did this?
And then we had to have the cute name to go with it.
Right. So,
by the way, can I tell you that side shot always bothers me because you can see my fat cheek. But anyway,
no, look.
Speaking of this, it's excellent for that. Look,
it works for this a lot because
here like this.
So we started. There's like a little crease there. Like I picture
Rick, that's called fat.
I picture a tiny Evel Knievel trying to jump it. but
I believe it hold water.
I thought it framed your cheekbones nicely, Bubba, but I won't use it if you don't like.
So anyway,
plus I got a little swelling on that side from that root canal.
Oh,
that's what it is.
Oh, that's what it is, right?
But Rick, we had to have a good name, and I think this was obvious.
Oh, it's good.
$1 million march
instead of $1 million man march, $1 million pound march.
Right.
And we thought in our audience, and we were correct, that if we got enough heavy people together, we could reach the number of 1 million pounds. And so we start thinking about, it gets its name. We know what we're working with now. And so we have decided that we're going to put our weight behind the cause to end the evil occupational taxation without representation. We're going to do some kind of march, but when we come back, we'll tell you how the march was laid out and other phrases that became part of the chant.
And the threat that we gave the city.
Because first of all, the city has to suffer some consequence if they won't heed your warning and they won't give in to your demands. So we'll tell you exactly how it went down when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast continues.
This is the Rick and Bubba Show. Watch more at blazetv.com/Rick and Bubba.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
All right, Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Now today, whenever you're getting this, we're going back in time. We're doing Rick and Bubba history. And we're talking about a moment in time. I don't remember the date, but you and I have not been doing the show long.
It was early. It may have been 94, 95, right in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And so if you've been with us, we didn't like the occupational tax. It was something we could put our weight behind. We called on the large community, those who also struggle with their weight, that we want £1 million, and we're going to march, and then we're going to demand that Gadsden, the city where we were located then, remove the occupational tax. But then, Bubba, as you said, we had to come up with some consequence.
Well, Rick, we simply told the city leaders in Gadsden that at the end of this march, if they did not repeal the occupational tax, we were all at one time going to jump into the river and flood Gadsden.
So you see that? You've got 1 million pounds of people standing in your city, and you have to understand how it was laid out, the landscape. The big giant Coosa River was within jumping distance of where we were. And if they said we will not take back this occupational tax, we said 1 million pounds of us are going to go down this bank right here. We're going to jump in the Coosa, and we're going to flood the city.
So we gathered together, we marched one block, and we ate pizza.
Now, we'll say this. You say a block. I don't know that we got to a full block. I mean,
the pizza tables kind of cut us off a little bit.
It did. Because I remember right before we got to the block, we had to turn left and eat pizza. Is that correct?
Yeah, right around the edge. But listen, strange as this is, there's actually video of this. We don't have it currently, but we're going to try to find it.
Yeah, I don't know where it would be.
Maybe we can get it by the time this airs.
I think Mark Norman.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't
he?
He
did.
It was.
Yep.
And it actually appeared in the first ever Rick and Bubba TV show, if I remember.
Right.
And because I'm gonna tell you, our march will bring a tear to a glass.
Let me tell you
eye.
what, we had a crowd out there. It was a great event.
I could not believe it.
The number of pizzas we went through, Rick. I mean, it was boxes stacked head high. And we had great T-shirts for it. We were having a great time and having a little fun with all of it, but point received.
Well, and when what we did, so when we marched that, what might have been more like a half a block,
give it a half.
And turned left and ate pizza, is we began to come up with other chants. And if you remember this
you got to have chants if you're going to march, Rick. Everybody knows that.
We chanted, if I remember, we shall overeat.
We shall overeat.
Right.
Waste is a terrible thing to mind.
Right. And so we took some classics.
Right.
And adapted those
under the satire banner.
Yeah, under the banner of satire, and I can still remember I had a bullhorn.
Yeah, and it was the first little lady.
And we chanted those and chanted those and chanted those, and then we started the march. And and God love them. I mean, there were some really heavy people there.
Yes,
and I think that they marched that almost block is the best they could.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. They gave it everything they had,
and most of them made it.
Well, Rick, it just gave us such a sense, too, of civic pride, getting involved in the process. It was democracy at work.
And to the mayor's credit, he did come to the rally.
Yes,
Remember,
he did.
We had a stage set up and everything. And if I recall, he got up and announced to the crowd that he would repeal it.
Something like that.
Yeah. Now, did he ever repeal it? I don't know.
Well,
there was something terrifying.
To say it and to actually do it is something else.
Well, I asked him about it, years later, and he said, "You don't understand the terror of being the mayor of a city, and you're staring at a bunch of heavy people." And he said, they had tomato sauce on their face,
Sure.
from the pizza,
Sure,
and some of them are literally chewing while you're looking and holding
remnants of breakfast on their shirt.
And if you remember, in the heavy community, this is how we operate. he said the thing that I was amazed by is I saw a lot of them. They had a piece of pizza about 3/4 of the way eaten,
right,
and already had a full one holding in the other hand.
Well, yeah, you got to have the on deck.
Well, because you don't know who might get it. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to go to one of those boxes and open it up, and that'll terrible. All you see is pieces of cheese on the bottom of it.
Rick, you don't want the umpire to say play ball. Nobody's ready to step in. You know?
So he said that he thought that we had what it took to flood the city.
Yes,
and he actually did. He responded that day. Now, did it ever truly get removed? I don't remember. Do you,
Rick? It was back and forth for many years. You know, it was a lot of.
Did he appease us that day that he was going to address it?
I think he announced to the crowd it was, so they were happy, and they seemed to eat more pizza.
Right, and but I think also when you look at the history of the show, and I'd be interested to get your feedback because I know how I felt about that, and we probably discussed it then. But that was also one of those indicators that I thought to myself, I think we got something going.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. We enjoyed it. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. So
it was great.
You know, you just felt like everybody was getting into it. You know,
right. Yeah,
and it was moving forward.
So
now, if you'd have told me 28 years later we'd still be doing this, I might have took that action.
Right. It's almost like, and this is the thing. I think we're in that place again because I think a lot of people misunderstand. We had an edgy attitude early on, like things like this. We never ever even had this thought cross our mind. Well, what if this gets us canceled? Because I think we had no hope whatsoever the show was going to last very long. So, I mean,
Rick, I don't think the term cancel culture had been invented.
No, it didn't. No, think about how we could freely be funny and freely say things and do things. And I look at
the show wasn't dirty.
No,
but
no.
I always thought it was a version of shock radio, not under the normal definition because we didn't use the language.
No,
but because we said what people were thinking.
Correct.
And a lot of people wouldn't say that.
No.
Or wouldn't go that far with it. Mm-mm. And I think we just were telling people what we thought because they, were a lot like us.
Well, and I will say this, heavy people had a sense of humor then.
Yeah, they did.
They did. And I think to myself now, if you did the exact same thing now, would there be an uproar from people saying you're being insensitive, mean, and this is not funny because you have heavy people assembling for 1 million pounds and marching not quite a block, turning left and eating pizza?
Rick, the fact that pizza's there, the fat people wouldn't care.
Right.
Now, it would be skinny people that would be telling the fat people they should be offended.
That we should care.
And, we went through that for a while, too, where people saying, well, you're promoting obesity. No, not really. We didn't want anybody to be obese. But if you have a little weight on you, the world tends to kind of push you down. Yeah. And beat you up.
If they get some help.
Right. And, we kind of had the attitude, look, if you're a little heavy, your life ain't over. Don't let people get on you. Have a little fun with it. We all have a mirror. We know we're fat.
Right.
So let's just do that. There's a difference in saying promoting being overweight or obese or just saying let's have fun. We are what we are, and let's move forward.
Yeah, and I think that at times, you're right, got misunderstood. If you
Power to the fork.
Right. If you want to just put it under the right banner, what we were saying to people like ourselves, none of us are perfect. Let's stop being delusional, and let's not take ourselves so serious.
Yeah, because honestly, a lot of people will wait. They kind of sometimes will get reserved because they feel like, I don't want to go out there and put myself out or meet people or, do things or try to, because, I'm overweight and I'm just, I don't want to deal with that. And we're kind of like, look, you got to go with what you got.
Yeah, work on it.
And if you're working on it, that's fine. But don't wait for that day where you feel like you're going to have the perfect look. Have a little fun. Don't take yourself too serious and get out there and enjoy life. And that's what we were doing.
And that's what it was. And we even at one time, I'm going to see if you remember this, but it's still on this topic before we move to the next one. Do you remember our fraternity and sorority?
Fat Phi Fat.
We had a fraternity of heavy men called Fat Phi Fat, and our sister sorority was Ada Moon Pie. And the people in the audience loved it, and we had shirts for each one.
Rick, we had a shirt for everything.
Now that's going to kind of take us into our next flashback, but we would have a shirt in a piece of merch at the drop of a hat when there was really, everybody was like, there's no demand for what you guys are putting out, but But there became a demand for it. Why? Because we were worthy of it? No. But because there was a hype that surrounded the show that we were way ahead of everybody discovering the fear of missing out. we could create the fear of missing out, I think, as good as anybody.
Maybe too good.
Yeah, maybe too good at times.
And we had a real good artist that did some really funny T-shirts.
Oh, if
I still have most of them framed.
Yeah, the closest thing that we've had is just lately we finally do have a shirt that says "Ever thought about topaz?" A little topaz. In the early days of the show,
laughing now.
In the early days of the show, if a phrase broke out or a bit was successful, they'd be a shirt with it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, they'd been so we were doing merchandise when nobody in the league that we were in was doing merchandise, and we charged for it.
Rick, we had a van that was a year-old van with shoe polish on it.
Well, and I mean,
that was our station van.
If you're going to sit around and say I'm not going to promote myself until they give me a promotion budget, well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, you'll be sitting there a long time.
Yeah, you better learn to do that yourself. And I think if there's anything that we did and hopefully continue to do is don't take yourself too serious, and go out there and stick your tongue firmly in your cheek. And promote yourself as the biggest thing in the world.
Well,
but all that in and of itself is a comedy bit.
Yeah, you have to navigate the waters. It's a lot like being in a pontoon boat after a big flood and you're upriver where you got a lot of things in the water. You can get through there. You just got to be careful and navigate it carefully.
Yeah, go ahead and act big time because most of the time people don't know the difference. I mean, they have no idea. I mean, think about how easy it is for people to go, I think I need to be part of this. Everybody. Should I be quiet?
You're giving away too many.
Okay. Well, I thought this podcast we could get people to learn things about us, but no, it works in the marketing world, and it's also us having fun. If you're in on the joke, I think you're generally entertained by it, and then if you get caught up in the hype, then we'll take you that way too. We'll take you either way.
You got to have fun, guys.
Right.
Got to have fun.
Right.
I think really now we need that more than ever.
Oh, Bubba, let me tell you, there was a time when what we were doing was so, I don't want to say common, but so well received, and it was everybody kind of had that same attitude. I think now the way we do things it may be more, as you said, more needed than ever because now it's a lost art.
Well, you got to think
it's leaving our culture.
You got to think too. In '94, '95, we were still living in the afterglow of the '80s, which was the greatest decade mankind has ever had.
Right, here we go.
I weep for today's children because they don't get to grow up in the great '80s.
Yeah,
I even suggested let's redo the '80s and the '20s.
Right. You know what I said?
And we're kind of doing part of the '70s with this inflation.
I don't know how to word it. That's so true. I don't know how to word it for the post millennial, the new millennial, because you get into 2000, it's hard to do phrases.
Yeah.
But back what I would have said then, and tell me how we could do it with this next 100 years. When we started the show in the mid 90s, I would have said Rick and Bubba bringing the 80s to the 90s.
Right.
So how do we say that now? Rick and Bubba bringing the 80s to the new millennium?
You could cover that. Would cover a lot of territory.
It does. I mean, you see how good bringing the 80s to the 90s works, but bringing the 80s to the new millennium.
We need to work on that one, Rick.
Do you like to the new millennium?
We need to work on that one.
Okay, so
give it some thought.
Yeah. Well, all right. We're going to come back. When we come back,
that and naming our studio.
That's right. We on the bleeding edge of technology. When we come back, we're going to talk about another thing. I think we started thinking, what could we do? We got into this period of our history where we were trying to one-up whatever we'd done before. And it led to, when we tell you what we did, and again, it's good to have a co-host that has engineering background, what we did and what we attempted and pulled off is going to blow you away. When Rick and Bubba University, the podcast continues. All right, Bubba, outer, O-U-T-E-R. I want everybody who is listening to this podcast, watching this podcast right now, to go try this new product because I'm dealing with it right now. I'm transitioning to outer for outdoor furniture because I've been so frustrated with the way outdoor furniture usually ends up. First of all, if I go to look at outdoor furniture inside a showroom and I don't see it, after it's been outside a while, I have no idea how it's going to react outside because I'm looking at it and it's not outside. Did you know they did a study and said, that really a lot of our time is spent indoors? 93% of our life is spent indoors. But many of our favorite moments that we always reflect on happen outdoors.
That's right.
I mean, we love to go outdoors.
The outdoors.
We love that feeling of peace and the fresh air. Well, this new outdoor furniture company was designed, their purpose is to get furniture that would get you outdoors more, and boy, have they done it. And I want you to understand that if you go and check out, this will be the best outdoor furniture that you've ever seen, and the technology, Mr. Engineer, former engineer, and the new designs that they have. It's like furniture you would find at a 5-star resort, but at the same time, things like this. This literally just happened at the old outdoor furniture that we had that I'm going to replace with outdoor furniture. Is they get stained, and you have to take the cushions off, and you have to try to wash them, or you have to keep covering the furniture up, take the cover off, put the cover back on when you leave. Did you know they designed their furniture that you can actually just pull a cover across it that's built into the furniture?
Rick, this is a major engineering forward, because I've dealt with trying to cover furniture. I've dealt with trying to leave it open. This is the best of both worlds. This is a major step forward.
Do you love that? So now I just cover it up so the weather stays off of it.
Yep.
And then when I come ready to sit down again, I just push it back. I'm not pulling off some cover and trying to find somewhere to put it.
Rick, that's the thing. You pull it off, and then what I do with it, and hey, the wind blows it, and then I can't find it, and hey, how about this? It's the best of both worlds. You can cover it, and it keeps it right there.
Yeah, and also, you know what else they have? A built-in outer shell. They've got that trademark with the big one, with the R. This protects the furniture from the rain and the dew, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. That's what it's called, outdoor shell, and it stays on the furniture the whole time.
Does it make that sound?
Yeah, and this stuff is light, but it's durable. It's easy to move around. As a matter of fact, on Shark Tank, Lori and Mr. Wonderful, they fought over investing in outer. They fought over.
That tells you something right there.
So here's what I want you to do.
Who ended up winning?
I don't know who won that. I didn't see that episode. It comes with the best in class warranties too, 10 years for their the Chic aluminum line, and you also get a 2-week trial with free returns. And guess what else? I want to look at it, but this is online. They have people where you live that already have the outer furniture set up, and you go look at it at their house.
Hands-on.
I love that. So here's what you do. Let's go liveouter.com/Rick Bubba and see it for yourself. Are you ready? Use our URL, okay, so they know that you heard it right here on Rick and Bubba University. liveouter.com/Rick Bubba, and look at the virtual showroom right now. Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, we are excited to have you with us. And we're looking back. It's Rick and Bubba Look Back. We're flashing back to some very, very memorable Rick and Bubba history. And Bubba, the next one at the time, we have James Spann, and he's been with us for years. But we actually had another weatherman that was on the program in the early years, Mark Prater.
Rick, so many, you mentioned a minute ago, so many of the things we wanted to do, we were always trying to up the ante a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And so many of the people we listened to growing up had, various pieces of equipment they used, vans, had submarine broadcast. So we naturally thought, let's take it to the air. Let's make this bigger and higher than any event we'd heard.
So at this time, help me on the memory here, and you may not remember it either. I know that we had started the process of expanding to other markets.
Yes.
We may have been only a few stations in to syndication, and they were still pretty regionally at this point. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, and
Plus
the station we were on had a pretty regional coverage, so most of the cities we went to was in that coverage area.
Yeah, it went out to many, many counties, and so, again, we told you that we were doing merchandise from the very beginning. And and we usually we put everything for sale, didn't have many giveaways, anything like that. But in this particular instance, we had an idea that we would get our weatherman who was on the show with us to get his TV station to agree to land the helicopter at our studio. You and I would get in it, broadcasting the entire time.
Yes.
and we would fly. I don't remember the number of markets. Was it 5 we tried to get in?
It was 4 or 5 cities we went to in a 4-hour show, which is not easy to do even with a helicopter.
So I want you to picture if you were listening to this show, and, of course, staying with our theme. It was called Fat Flight. Okay, so staying with our theme. So picture us running out, getting in the helicopter. Now, Bubba, will you tell all those out there how we broadcast, how we pull it off?
Well, Rick, this you might see has its own set of problems to do this.
Yeah.
So we, at the time, had a device called a Cellcast, and it basically was a mixer, a good analog cell phone back in the day that had a lot better sound than what some of the digital phones have today.
Boy, they do.
And we had our headset, so we had the mixer, we had that, and we had to power it independent. They would not let us power anything via the helicopter because, Rick, let's face it, we want the helicopter to have all its juice it needs.
We didn't want to pull a fuse out or anything like that.
Right. So we put a marine battery that was fully charged in, and I had tested it, and I thought if all the numbers worked out, that we should be able to broadcast the whole time. Now, not only that, there also was an issue about being in the helicopter. Would it work with a cell tower?
Right.
Because cell towers, many of you know, have a beam tilt down to the ground, so they want to cover a limited area. That's why phones don't work in airplanes real well. But after studying the situation, the helicopter not getting, extremely high, a few thousand feet, we thought this would work. We tested it. The numbers looked good to keep the battery going for that amount of time. And I do remember the night before I was leaving, and we didn't have a lot of room in there either. So we had to carry. I had like a little pouch thing that I was carrying just a few things in, and I picked up a backup fuse for the Cellcast. I thought just in case we need that. Yeah. So we had a landing zone in a parking lot next to the radio station. It was actually a skating rink. Yeah. Now, it's possible that we forgot to ask them if we could land a helicopter there. I'm not really sure. I heard a rumor. But
many things on the list.
But I don't know.
So many things on the list to remember.
Yeah. So we land the helicopter. We take off to go to several cities. We're already doing the show, or it was right as we were starting, and we blew a fuse in the Cellcast.
I forgot about this.
And it went completely dead. And I thought, well, this is not good.
So Speedy back at Master Control on the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we replaced the fuse, got back on the air, and I was just kind of holding my fingers thinking, I hope we can get through this. So we take off, and we head to several Rick and Bubba cities that had shown an interest. We may even have had a competition for people to call in to decide what cities we would go to.
Yeah, I don't remember how we landed on the city.
Listener active.
Pun intended.
Right.
How we landed on these cities and towns. But I remember that we would hype it up. Think about it. Now you're on the air, and you're able to hype. Here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Here's the field we're going to land in. And we would come in to given town or city.
A landing zone.
Yeah, a landing zone. And we would come in and land, jump out with T-shirts.
Right.
Throw the T-shirts to the crowd. These are all Rick and Bubba T-shirts. And then we would jump back in the helicopter, get airborne again, and start broadcasting to the next LZ.
Now, this also required a pretty active ground crew, if you remember. And lucky for us, the National Guard in our state agreed to help with this.
They did.
And so they were at every landing zone with Humvees, keeping the crowd back safely and providing a smoke stream for the pilot to land on. And, without them, we couldn't have done it.
No, and they also came in handy on something we had not counted on.
The city was Pell City, Rick.
Yeah, it was.
It was about stop number 3.
Yeah, so Pell City was one of the places, as Bubba said, we stopped. It's in the Birmingham metro area, right? Yeah. Yes. And so there was, we love passion for the show.
Yes.
We
absolutely.
really
Got to have it.
Got to have it.
Without it.
Can't survive without it. And you are the fuel that feeds this in this case, helicopter. People love free stuff, and they love free things. You see this, something we miscalculated with the welfare system. We just didn't think people would be that into it. But people really do like free things. And you would think that would be a problem for mainly men fighting over things. But I don't know if you've ever seen women, like when there's a sale on something out there during Christmas shopping or whatever, you'll see a side of women you normally don't see. They can get quite territorial when it comes to items that are at a deal.
Rick, I remember we had such a great turnout at Bell City.
We did.
And we got out, we started throwing T-shirts, and two ladies got into a tug-of-war with a shirt.
I'm talking about.
And if I remember correctly, it's obvious nobody was going to win this.
Right.
And one of them acted like she was going to let it go.
It was a great
And
move.
when she did, she came across with the right hook right to the bridge of the nose.
Dotted that nose.
Yep.
But it was a beautiful move, as you said. Picture both women have both hands.
They're pulling back and forth.
And the shirt is like this. And they're doing, and the one who acted like she was going to let go took, and I think she was right-handed.
I think she would just let it go.
And she did this move here, and right when the woman thinks, oh, she's letting go with her hand, she came over the top, donk! And I mean, right.
No, we don't promote that kind of activity for T-shirts.
No, we don't.
But I'm just reporting on what we saw.
And it was something, and I will say this because I don't know if you've ever been punched right on the bridge of the nose. Your eyes water uncontrollably.
Right.
And so the woman
a deviated septum will do that.
I don't like to see good behavior get rewarded.
No.
But in this
You mean
case,
bad behavior.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do like good behavior. See, that was the Freudian slip because I thought it was quite skillful. Is that the woman who did the punching did get the shirt?
Yeah. Well, the other woman let go at that point,
right?
Rick, because she couldn't see anymore.
You're right. She wanted to grab her nose and didn't know how bad it was, and so we didn't want to promote that actually.
Right.
But it did happen, and though we'll come back and tell you how the promotion kind of ended and kind of wrapped up. But at this point, we started thinking to ourselves, have we really thought this through because we're creating tremendous hype being in the helicopter.
Oh, the crowds were awesome,
and working people into a frenzy. So we'll continue.
Some of you may have been there.
You might have been there. Fat Flight, another Rick and Bubba historic moment. We'll finish that up when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues. All right, so Bubba, I know that you've done this. You went to Manscaped, didn't you, and ordered?
I did, Rick.
Yeah, I know that you ordered because I saw you doing it. And did you put in the code Bubba20?
Well, yes, I did. Of course I did.
At manscaped.com. I have the shampoo and conditioner combo because men are not going to use a conditioner extra. I've got the body wash. I have also I
never thought I'd hear you say body wash.
I struggle with body wash because you got to have a washcloth for that.
Yeah.
But this is the best I've ever used. I will say the shampoo is superior to anything for a man that I've ever used. It is fantastic. Does my hair not look fabulous?
It really does.
Yeah,
it does.
Now
I'm sure your smell fresh as a rose.
I really do.
Yeah.
Do you want to smell me?
No, not really.
Okay. But anyway, so there's all kinds of other products there. Anything that a man needs from head to toe. And
got it all.
And let me say they have it all. I absolutely love the lawnmower, and that's the trimmer that they have, the 4.0. That the light on the end of that is kind of lighting the way.
Yes,
is
because a lot of times you need a light.
You do. It's crucial, and
especially if you're out there bush hogging late at night.
Right. My beard has never been trimmed as well as it is because of this lawnmower. And if you need it,
smell good and well trimmed, Rick. Congratulations.
And had to come to the conclusion that I did need the weed whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. Wish I didn't.
It works good too. By the way.
Wish I didn't. But I do.
I got a full crop there, buddy.
Right. Yes, you do.
Yep.
Yes, you do. And speaking of crop, they have all sorts of things that keep us fresh. I'll say that. So if you would like to find out more, and they also have some. I like the travel bag you can get, and then you put all your stuff in it. So if you're on the road, you got it.
Rick, that's a nice bag too. Leather.
I love
really
it.
Nice.
Don't you like
really
that?
Nice.
I do too. So right now, go to manscaped.com.
Did you order one too?
I have one as well, and I love it.
Did they send you a free one?
Let's go to manscaped.com. Yeah, I got the free one. I'm sorry. I'm sending Bubba
I had
one.
to order mine.
Manscaped.com. Put in the code Bubba20. And also, look, I'm going to tell you what. Sherry's excited that I've really, got serious about my hygiene.
Really?
Yeah, and from a company that's dealing with men. Okay, Manscaped.
That's a good trimmer, by the way.
It is.
Yeah, it's
great.
really good. Feels good.
Tell me that those fog lights are not important.
Ricky, it just feels good, and I like the rate that the razor is actually working on.
Fantastic. They got all kinds of products. Some we didn't even get into today, so you'll find them. Manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped, and put in the code BUBBA20 and get 20% off and free worldwide shipping. All right, so Bubba, we're getting to the end of another Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, Fat Flight. So we had the scuffle, we had the dust up in Pell City. Fat Flight featured.
Be careful using that term; it could cost you a lot of money.
I want to commend you for technically us and having a setback early.
That scared me a little bit because I thought I got one more fuse in my pocket. So
yeah.
For some reason, if we have some surge here, we're done.
I want to go back.
I was looking for aluminum foil off of chewing gum just in case.
We're in a helicopter. We are powering the cellcast that we're broadcasting
on a marine
battery.
Yep.
And we're landing in various towns and cities, jumping out, throwing T-shirts.
We got T-shirts packed in that thing like crazy.
Getting back in and going from place to place to place.
Yes. With a lot of help. 1, Mark Prater.
Yes.
2, ABC 3340. 3, the National Guard, and so many people, and of course the people came out and made it happen. It may have been one of the most fun days we've had in 28 years.
Do you believe in the industry it's a promotion that has been overlooked?
I do. I really do.
I mean, it should be elevated. Do y'all hear what we just told y'all we did?
To
million pound march. Look, that was great. But what we pulled off from a technological standpoint, because Million Pound March was not during the live show.
No,
we did that on the weekend.
Right.
This, we kept the show going, and at the time, the Hammer was our boss. And when that fuse went out,
the great Mark Bass.
Yeah, if you start rounding up all this, and keep in mind the amount of fuel that we were going to use in a helicopter, if all of a sudden he turns on the show and we're not on, and now we're just flying around in a helicopter not doing the show,
right?
And we left Speedy.
It's not going to have that same punch.
And we've left Speedy in there by himself. It's just not. He's not going to dig that.
No, probably not.
No.
And you can't just land a helicopter at a mall and run in Radio Shack to get a fuse.
You really can't.
They're kind of sensitive about that.
I'm going. This is not fair. What I'm about to ask you, and I acknowledge that.
Okay.
Can you remember everywhere we stopped? We remember Pell City because of what we call the incident.
I think I can give you most of it.
Okay.
We took off in Gadsden at the skating
from
rink.
the skating rink.
Our first stop was at the Hoover Met.
Wow. Okay, I do remember that
in the big parking lot.
I do remember that.
Then we went to Pell City,
where the incident happened.
Then we went to that after that one, I may have to go back and look at the notes. Now, we did end up in Albertville, the last stop.
You sure about that?
It was somewhere up north of Gadsden.
Did we ever go to Tuscaloosa? In that? Did we land in Tuscaloosa?
I don't think we did. I don't remember. Did we go to Anniston? I can't remember where we went.
I think no way we didn't go back to our home county.
And then
you have no idea where we landed. Quintard Mall, maybe? Baseball field out there? Maybe out the Civic Center where those baseball fields are.
That kind of rings a bell.
Yeah.
Maybe some of you who are watching this that were with us that day or at one of the landing zones will drop us a comment and let us know where we were.
No, that would be cool. Those of you that catch the podcast, email us, Rick at rickandbubba.com, Bubba at rickandbubba.com, if that one will work, Bubba. But
we ended up north of Gadsden, and it had to be Albertville or somewhere close to there.
True.
Because when we landed there, we had a running joke with one of our fellow broadcasters at another station, whose name was Alan Taylor.
Oh yeah,
the great Alan Taylor.
Yeah, right.
And we had the crowd chanting, "Alan Taylor eats worms."
That is,
you may remember that.
Well, it was a competitor.
Yeah. And it was a takeoff of the old MASH bit about Frank Burns eats worms.
Yeah, ours didn't rhyme,
right? But it was still pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and we would.
And I enjoyed saying it.
I did too. And everywhere he went, people would ask me for each worms.
Yeah, he reminded us of that several times.
We played hard in those days, and if you were on the other team, then that's just the way it was.
I think Alan loved it.
It
made him a household name.
You know how sometimes you say there's no.
Now people used to bring him worms all the time.
They did all sorts.
Alan,
of
hope you're good, man.
Yeah, you think any chance that Alan Taylor catches this ever?
Probably this one he will.
Yeah. Well, we were his nemesis, and we did things that made his life difficult.
That was all in good fun.
But it was. I mean, I'm talking about in just radio competition way.
Sure.
I mean, just like if you're a fan of a certain team and the fans of the other teams, y'all go back and forth, same thing.
Yeah, just a good fun.
And that makes for a good rivalry.
Yeah.
And it should be a place of respect that we found them worthy enough to try to destroy.
I hear he took up fishing.
Well, I mean, this has been fun looking back, Bubba. It really has. So,
oh my goodness, how 45 minutes has
see how
flown
quick
by.
that went. Well, this is fun, and I think the veterans like it, but I also think the new people find it hopefully interesting too to go back and us review the history of this show.
It was a lot of fun not having four other guys butt in too.
Yeah, it really was. You see how we got to carry that out without Greg shredding us somewhere in the middle of it? This is what Greg would have said. Yeah, y'all were looking good. So anyway, thanks.
I've hardly got time to get online and order stuff.
Thank you guys so much for being with us. I hope you've enjoyed this.
Thank you all very, very much
on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.